Hello. Tonight, we're gonna have an MRE. MRE is a meal ready to eat, and it's the official foodstuffs of the US military. Most militaries around the world have their own version of the MRE that may not have the same name, and whose menus may conform to local traditions, tastes, and other cultural differences. The one I'll be eating is surplus US military. So this is something that active duty troops would have had access to at some point or another. Of course, any good meal needs a good plate, or in this case, tray, to be put on. So we'll be using this nice calming blue one today, which just happily happened to come in some pretty crinkly packaging. And here we have our MRE, Menu 18, beef ravioli in meat sauce. The menu number refers to basically which version of the MRE you're getting. There are about 24 MRE menus that I was able to select from. I'm not quite sure on how many are currently available, but there's generally a good variety, and usually 1 or 2 vegan and halal options as well. And each MRE has its package date on it, with the first number being the last number of the year, and the next 3 being the day. Now let's see what our first item is. You'll also notice as we go along, each item has its own package date, since they're often packaged not on the same day that they go into the final product. This is the chocolate banana nut muffin top. The TFF at the end stands for trans fat free. The next item is the FRH, the flameless ration heater. This is what's used to warm up your main entree if for some reason you don't have access to water, a fire, or some other way to heat up the main meal. It uses chemical packs that you can see through the plastic there that are reactive to water. Next item is the hot beverage bag. This can be used to stir and mix the drinks that come in the MRE, whether it be the lemon lime drink or the instant coffee. This is your accessories pack. So this has stuff like your instant coffee, your gum, some Splenda sweetener, hand wipes, and if you see that little thing that says Lighthouse on it, that's actually toilet paper. The next item coming out of the bag is the lemon lime flavored sports drink. It's essentially a Gatorade mix. You can see there it contains no fruit juice, and they refer to it as a beverage base powder. Everything, as you can see throughout the entirety of the MRE, is very clinical and just explains exactly what it is you're getting. Next up, out of the MRE, we have the wheat, what they refer to as white wheat snack bread. You'll see this is also labeled as trans fat free and has its own date code as well. And we're not done yet. There is still, in fact, more to come out of the MRE. These things are pretty slam-packed of stuff, like I said, just to make sure that the caloric content is there. This little piece of cardboard is a sleeve that the main meal gets put into when you heat it up. And this is another side, a teriyaki beef stick. You'll see later in the video, but it's kind of like a thicker Slim Jim. And next up, we have the last two items. That first one's going to be the main meal, but this right here is cheese spread. Like I said, everything's very clinical, and it's just designed to easily and quickly explain to you what each component is. And we finally come to the main event. This is the beef ravioli and meat sauce. As you can see, it is labeled as such and is also given its own date code. A thing to keep in mind is that MREs are rated to last about 3 to 5 years if stored in good conditions, but they have been known to last longer. actually crack into this thing. So first up is the teriyaki beef stick. Like I mentioned earlier, it ended up being basically a thicker Slim Jim. It's actually made by a brand some of you may have seen if you ever looked in the Slim Jim section of like a convenience store. It did not taste good. I don't know if it was the fact that this particular MRE was 3 years old, or just the fact that it was completely unseasoned in any way, shape, or form. It was surely the blandest Slim Jim style thing I've ever eaten. Although I haven't eaten a Slim Jim in probably about 10 years. Next up, we have the white wheat snack bread. This is definitely closer to a breadstick than it is any type of traditional bread, despite the fact that they made it loaf-shaped. It is pretty thick and airy, but not terrible. Next up is the chocolate banana nut muffin top. This is probably the item that surprised me the most, in that it was far better than I thought it would be, and far worse than it needs to be considered traditionally good. Again, like most of the things in this meal, it wasn't outright terrible, but it certainly wasn't good by traditional dessert standards. And here we have the FRH. It has instructions written on the pack itself, and you only need a very small amount of water to activate it, and then you just lean it and let it go. Next up, we have the beverage base powder lemon lime. This instructed me to add it to 12 ounces of water, which I did, and stir thoroughly, which I also did, and it still ended up tasting like watered down Gatorade. Easy enough fix, just add it to less water than it instructs you, and you probably actually have something that tastes like a pretty good knockoff Gatorade. Otherwise, it was just okay, as is. Next up, I needed the cheese spread as it instructs you to. This is mostly because as it sits in its packaging, it can separate the oil from the main spread, and this just reconstitutes it all together. I ended up putting this on the white wheat bread snack, and that made a passable sort of cheesy snack. Like I've mentioned, everything in this meal is pretty bland and pretty poorly seasoned as a whole, so any combination that you can make between the individual components is probably your best bet. I also ended up using this hot sauce on the main course, and it was a lifesaver. Really saved it. And speaking of main course, here we have it. It was quite hot from being in the FRH, which gets very hot very quickly and gives off a distinct chemical odor as the components start activating. The tear notch is sideways so that you could eat the meal directly out of the pack without needing a plate or tray if you didn't have one available. And as you can see, it looks really appetizing. Luckily, this was actually the best thing in there. It tasted like Chef Boyardee, it was hot, and definitely the best part of the entire MRE experience by a mile. And there you have it, our complete MRE meal. Bon appetit!